Hi, welcome to Let's Talk About Love Stories from Everywhere. I'm your host, Jill Ferguson, and today my guest is Joshua Dunlop, who is the founder of Even Path,
Even better. That's great.
and it's evenpathway.com is the URL. You are a certified financial planner, plus you have a bunch of other initials after your name. And I, from what little research I did, you studied history as an undergrad. So
I,
tell me how we went from history to financial planning
yeah.
or finance.
My goal when I graduated high school was just to understand people better. And the high school history courses that I took really helped me understand people a little bit more. So I decided to study that with a minor in economics because both of those were kind of social sciences that looked into the methods of how people acted. And
Okay.
so after I graduated, I graduated right into the recession. So that did wonderful timing on my part, and couldn't really find a job. And finally, I was like, okay, well, I've got to choose a path. I'm either going to do law or I'm going to do finance. And I did a study on both, and I found that one, um, lawyers, it was way more expensive to become one, and they didn't get paid as much to begin with. And the second thing I found out was that a financial person was the kind of person that would do the study that I'm currently doing. So I went that direction.
Interesting. And you're from Colorado originally, and you're currently based in Colorado.
Correct.
But I don't know if Colorado's like it is here where I'm in California, but it used to be in California that there was like four graduates from law school for every law job that there was in the state. There was just this glut of people who had studied law
Yeah.
and went heavily into debt. Most of them to do so, right?
That was what I
Um,
was finding too. I mean,
yeah,
obviously, this is 15 years ago that we're talking, so I don't know if it's changed since then.
yeah.
But back then, that was definitely the case, and I think the number that I was coming across was three in Colorado for every one
Okay.
job. So
Yeah. Yeah. So you figure, okay, well, finance seems more solid,
yeah,
easier, maybe easier to get a job. Um, in between there, though, I believe you did a little stint in New York working for a newspaper as a writer.
yeah. I
Hmm.
decided that what I really wanted to do, I had worked my way through college, and so I did not have the normal fun party time college experience that most folks have. Because I spent most of my time working at a breakfast restaurant, so that the nights were
Okay.
very short for me.
Yeah.
And so when I graduated, I just had this itch to live that part of my youth. And so I had a friend who had an apartment in New York, couldn't find a job in Denver. I ended up finding a little freelance job for a newspaper up in New York and decided to go for it.
Okay. Nice. And what did you think?
It was great. I am so happy I did it because I found out within a year that it really wasn't for me.
Okay.
And I found out that the thing that I found out more than anything was that it wasn't work that stopped me from living the party lifestyle in college. I just didn't like the party lifestyle. So that was what I learned about myself in New York.
I'm another one of those people who didn't go through that, and I worked my way through undergrad, and I don't think I have missed anything.
Yeah.
But
Um,
yeah, yeah. So you decided to go into finance. How
mhm.
did that all come about? Like, because you need a SEC certification that you have to take, and you're a certified financial planner. So did you
Yeah,
work on the job? Did you go back to schooling?
it's a great question. There was, and to my knowledge, still is, among many brokerages like your Fidelities, your Schwabs, places like that. There are customer service roles that you can come into that are meant to feed into becoming a financial person. And that was what I did. I was not even on the broker track when I first started because I had a history degree. And within 2 years, I was able to become a broker. Within 5 years, I was able to become a CFP. it was work that I did on the job. So that was another experience of working and studying at night that I had. And then after that, the other alphabet soup I have is a certified divorce financial analyst, which may seem completely counterintuitive, given that I'm interested in love and the way that people come together. That I would focus on people coming apart, but I found that that's when people need love the most, need love and support, and so that's why I went to that.
And you, on your LinkedIn profile, it says that you work in the intersection where money and emotion meet, or something like that. Pretty
Yeah,
close to which was one of the things that drew me to your profile, because I was like, oh, this is interesting. We got to talk about that.
yeah,
Um, and so but you're not just working with divorce people who are going through divorce, right? You work with other major emotionally driven situations.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh, One thing that I can tell you, having worked a decade as a regular, what I would call a traditional financial advisor, somebody who managed assets, was that the number one thing that would mess people up, that would take them off their track, it was never um, the fee, though that was important. It was never the type of investment. It was never index or this. It was always an emotion that the client didn't expect to have. And then when that emotion came through, it didn't matter. I always talk about building two houses. You're two people building one house, right? There's the you that's good, that's going through good times. You're going to build the house, and then someday it's going to switch, and the fight or flight you is going to show up, and they're going to build a new bathroom and knock out that wall, and they're going to completely redo everything. And that's what people most often are harmed by when they're doing their any of their investing or any of their financial behaviors. So I found that on top of that, when somebody goes going through a really charged life transition, they are constantly in that fight or flight mode. They are constantly dealing with noise and stress and pressure. And like you said, divorce isn't the only one. Widowhood is another really big one. But even retirement, these feelings of stress and fear are pretty common in retirement, and we don't talk about that a lot either. And so, at these moments where we're probably our most emotionally charged, we have to make what are probably the most important financial decisions that we have to make. And when I decided that I wanted to start my own firm, my father-in-law passed, and it was my we were close. My wife was close with her father, and it was terrible to watch that kind of grieving and that kind of mourning in
Wa-
somebody that you love.
Was it during an illness, or was it unexpected? If you
It was
don't mind
both.
me
He,
asking. Okay.
he was in his 60s, but it was an illness, and
Okay.
it kind of came on quick, and it kind of took him quick.
And
And
60s is,
what's that?
we consider 60s young. I
Yeah,
mean, in
absolutely.
many
Yeah,
aspects.
no, 60s
Yeah.
is young. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of what like. He had some health problems in the past, but we had never expected anything like that, and
Yeah.
so it was very devastating for everybody involved. And what I found was that knowing things about the finances, knowing things, and she's an attorney, so she knew the legal side. And I found that combination, knowing both of those things, allowed us to grieve and just grieve, not grieve and create a spreadsheet, not grieve and balance a checkbook, but just grieve. And I realized how important that was. And I wanted to be able to be that financial expert for people in challenging times, so that not only can they make more informed decisions, but they can be more confident about those decisions, and they can free up those emotions and those processing tasks for the life transition that is charging them. So
Mm. It's beautiful the way you said that.
thank you.
And I think there's a lot of people that don't even realize what they need until they're faced with that. all of
Right.
a sudden change, right? And
Yeah.
then it's like, holy cow, I didn't know I didn't have this, or I didn't have that, or like I think of my husband's stepmother. She, when his dad died, because she had always let him handle the finances and stuff, even though she had been a professional her entire life and made her own money, and she never even had a credit card in her name for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
And she learned very quickly after he died that for her to get credit and get her own credit card was like they were trying to put a $500 limit on her credit card
Yeah.
because that she didn't have any credit history. And it's those kinds of things, right, that people don't even think about, let alone trying to find the passwords for things. And
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Even beyond that, I
And
find
what
that,
needs to go to probate and what doesn't, and all
yeah,
that other stuff.
and I find that there's so many things that we as people don't know, right? There's a million things you don't know. There's a million things I don't know.
Yeah.
But for some reason, if one of those things is financially related, there's a lot of shame around that.
Yeah.
And I always like to tell people every day I walk into a house that I bought, and I have no idea how it doesn't collapse in on me. I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't know how the water flows. I know none of that. That's okay because I hired people to do all
Yeah.
that stuff for me. So um, when it comes to that financial stuff, if there's shame that's keeping anybody out there from seeking help or from getting what they need, just know you shouldn't.
But I think the other piece of that is that sometimes people think, I don't have enough, so I don't need this expert, right?
Yeah.
And that's another one of those kind of lies tied to shame that we tell ourselves that, yeah,
It's not just a lie tied to shame. It's also very much something that we're told through marketing.
yeah,
I don't manage assets, and so I'm not an asset manager. And a lot of the asset managers have minimums that
yeah.
you have to have in order to. And so it is so easy for people to internalize these minimums, right?
Mhm.
500,000 to invest suddenly becomes 500,000 to retire,
Yeah.
right? And that also really weighs on people.
Mhm. That's true.
And,
So on your website, it says where money meets clarity is what you're providing, and that there's 6 areas to predict retirement success,
yeah,
and you have them as society, excitement, relevance, vision, expectation, and then a spirituality, self-actualization kind
yeah,
of pillar, if you will.
yeah.
Um, and so let's talk a little bit about those. Like, why does it need these 6 areas to determine whether retirement's going to be successful?
Because a lot of people consider retirement to be a financial event or a career event, but in actuality, it is a lifestyle event. We just to take the first one, right? Society, from a very early age, we are constantly made to meet new people and forge friendships and forge alliances out of that. From the moment we're put into kindergarten until the moment we leave our jobs, a lot of our society is taken care of for us. And so, what a lot of studies are finding is that people who are financially okay in retirement are still experiencing a lot of depression.
Yeah.
And a study by Gallup found that more people are experiencing financial security than expected to, and less people are experiencing fulfillment than expected to. And so these are the 6 areas that go beyond finances that predict, because a lot of people think what's a good predictor of retirement success? Well, how many millions I have in the bank, and that's never true. And so not only have studies found these 6 areas to be really important, but I've seen these 6 areas make the difference between somebody who hates retirement and feels like it's the end of their life
Mhm.
and somebody who loves retirement and feels like it's that new chapter to embrace.
Well, and I would even venture to say that statistically we can look and see if there's a high number, and I think it's more men than women, that of people that within it's the first 3 years after retirement, right? Because they have lost the society part of it, and they've lost the relevance, that a lot of them die unexpectedly, right?
Absolutely.
And
It's
yeah, and but I think it's because of these six things. I really do. It feels like,
yeah,
yeah,
it's because these things come down to our existential like search for meaning.
yeah,
And I think it's also a disservice, sort of the way that retirement is advertised, right? Retirement is advertised as this time of relaxing, of this time of no worries.
yeah,
And that sounds really great until you've spent 2 weeks doing it. And
yeah,
then suddenly you realize you need excitement,
yeah.
you need challenges. And so,
Especially if you came from a high pressure job,
right,
a high stress job where you were working 60 hours a week, and then all of a sudden to go from 60 hours a week to nothing
yeah,
is like, what, it may take you a little bit to overcome the trauma of that,
yeah,
and to adjust to it, but then to realize that, like, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know how I feel this time.
right.
Yeah.
It's one question I always ask people when they're about to retire or when they've just retired. I always ask them, what challenge are you excited to take on next?
Mhm.
And so many times people don't have an answer to that because they don't think
Yeah.
about retirement as a time of new, exciting challenges.
Mhm.
So that's why it's so early on that the society, the excitement, and the relevance. Those are three that are just tied together and so important.
So, how do you counsel, if you will, a client that comes in and says, I don't know the answer to that? Do you like try to give them homework? Say, figure it out?
Yeah,
Because,
it depends on if they've come in before retirement or after retirement.
yeah.
But if somebody's come in after retirement, they're typically not telling me that they're missing one thing or another. They typically come in and they're just like, I'm not happy with retirement. A lot of people say everybody I go to talks about the finances and I'm fine financially. It's something else. And when I begin asking them these questions, it's not just that they will have an answer, that they won't have an answer. It's that for the first time, their perception of retirement has been punctured and a brand new way of thinking is kind of coming in. And so a lot of times I'll have that first meeting and we'll go over those 6 areas. And the very next meeting, they'll say, no, I get it. Like they'll get one or two of them.
Mhm.
Right. And typically one or two are already really well defined for somebody. But for instance, if somebody's society is very, very, very heavily lacking, um, we will figure out, we will do some exercises to try to figure out what is important to them, what is valuable to them at that time, and then potentially volunteer opportunities, ways to get out into the community, because at the end of the day, a community is what you put into it. And if
Yeah.
you can encourage people to kind of go that route, and I always say that's a way to invest your money, right? Investing it into your community, investing your time, investing your resources. That's a way to build that society that isn't tied to work.
Mhm. And you've done something like that, in my understanding, for yourself, right? Because you worked as a contractor for the National Guard,
Mhm.
helping people in that form of the military service figure some of their stuff out. That,
Absolutely. That's
is that
that's
my understanding of that is correct or not? Yeah.
absolutely
Okay.
that was the genesis of some of this, was that I would speak to people who were going to retire from the military and they had really no clue what they were going to do.
Yeah.
But then you would nonstop, people would only hang out at the VFA, or people would only, and I'm not knocking any of those things, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that
Mhm.
they would hang out there because that was the only thing they knew.
Mhm.
And that's good to a degree. But also, as your relevance to that social group begins to wane, so too is how important you think you are to the society that you live in. And so all the time I would see guys that were in their 70s, and all they would want to do is talk about stories from the past, and not take advantage of the amazing opportunities for living that were all around them now. And that was the genesis of some of this kind of serve methodology.
I would argue that, as a society, we've not done well in a lot of ways with our veterans,
I agree.
right? To
Wholeheartedly.
make them feel more important and integrated and stuff once they come back from serving in the military.
And so often, the career path, and this is a wonderful career path. Again, I'm not knocking anything, but the career path is military to some kind of first responder
Yeah.
position,
Yeah.
and oftentimes that is just trauma to trauma,
Yeah.
and we don't appreciate that enough. I think about it. So often we just say thank you for your service, and that's kind of the end of it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that's being piled on top of folks that are in these positions and that are in the military.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons I used to do work for Team Rubicon, which is a disaster response
Mhm.
organization that is made up of military, former military, and first responders. And it's, you've been trained already to have these, mucking skills and Sawyer skills and all these things to help during a time of natural disaster. And so you can put those skills to use by helping people during disaster times as a volunteer. And I think that organizations like that are so important for that reason, right?
I agree.
And we used to have, I mean, the oldest guy I ever met at a Team Rubicon after a hurricane, he was in his 80s and he was still volunteering, and he loved it because he felt like he was useful,
Yeah,
right?
it's that relevance. It's that society excitement and relevance, right? All three of those were there in that volunteer opportunity for him.
Yeah, and I feel like there's people that get this about the retirement thing, that get these ideas about what the retirement might look like. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to golf all the time or whatever, and then they realize that doing that same thing, whatever it is that they love to do, even repetitive over and over and over again, it kind of takes some of the joy away from it.
Yeah,
Too, right?
it does. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The number one thing that I see people do months into retirement, the first few months into retirement, is begin setting their alarm again because they hate getting up at 9, 10 in in the morning.
Yeah.
It's so counter to everything that we've been taught. But all these things that we find annoying about the work lifestyles that we lead, some of those things are really important to us, and we just don't know it until they're gone.
Yeah. That's an excellent point. I like that. Uh, Very much so. So you also, your website says that you, or maybe it was an interview that I saw of you, that says that you do purpose driven financial planning. Shouldn't all financial planning be purpose driven?
Certainly, and I think to a large degree, a lot of great financial planners are doing just that. One of the one of the challenges I think that exists in the industry is that one of the only ways to consistently make a profit is through managing assets.
Hmm.
And that is why Evenpath does not manage assets. We are not an asset manager, none of that. And the reason for that is because, yes, purpose driven is what most people get into financial planning for, but it's really hard to juggle purpose driven when it is coupled with a sales pitch, if you will. And that is a challenge that I think even a lot of people in the industry would voice and agree with me on. So in a way, when I say kind of purpose driven, the bit of unspoken context there is that's it. Like you don't have to worry about there being anything else. The first version of my website used to say, I get paid by the clients I help to help them. And that's it. there's no kickback here. There's no fee here. You just pay me and I help you.
But there are certain asset management companies that work on a similar model, right? They're not the, I hate to name names in this, but like there's some of the big behemoths. Their people get paid based on what they recommend for you, right? You buy it. It is a sales thing. Okay, we're pushing this right now. If you can get your clients to sign up for this, we give you a commission or a kickback,
Yeah.
right? But then there's other companies that one of which you used to work for, who I've been a client of for 30 years almost, who who doesn't work on that structure. They pay their people salaries, decent salaries enough, especially once they move up right in the chain of command, and
Yeah.
they're not pushing a particular fund or a particular whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Even in those situations, any time that somebody is going to a financial planner and they're not paying for a financial plan, the time and effort that goes into that financial plan is being paid for by something else.
Oh yeah.
And again, I'm not knocking anybody. I,
Mhm.
I I came from that industry and I have a lot of love for that industry. But also there are times where you feel like you have to serve the master that's signing the paycheck.
Yeah.
So and that's just the reality of it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So but I think with artificial intelligence and the way that things are going right now, that's really great at the quant stuff, at the quantifiable things. And I think one of the things that I see humans being relevant for in the future is their ability to process emotions and understand emotions and to be able to be authentic and genuine and connect with people. Um, and I think going forward, those are the elements that an advisor, is going to be known for when it comes to the finance game. And I think that we will hopefully see a split off between the asset manager type that can go a little bit more to the AI and the financial guidance that can be done by human beings.
What do you think about the robo advisor situation with, yes, AI can compute mass quantities of data way quicker than a human can and maybe make recommendations on that are good recommendations. But there's also this human component to investing where people get frightened, right?
Yeah,
They do sell offs. They do things that are unexpected in some ways. I'm sure there's some statistical model that maybe includes some of that stuff, but there does seem to be this what's called a reactionary, uh,
yeah,
response to, like, is I remember seeing just a little while ago, somebody said, like, well, Eli Lilly's going to just keep going and going and it's going to hit this strike price, right? And then it just kept going and going. It wasn't quite at that strike price, but it,
yeah,
and it's like it's almost like people buy into the hype, right?
yeah.
Because they want to.
And
Um,
just
and
to,
the
just
sell
to-
offs are the same way, right?
yeah,
Oh my gosh, I don't want to, yeah,
yeah, just to
yeah,
connect two things too.
yeah,
A lot of times that feeling that you get when you are following the hype, when you are following these investments, that can sometimes give you the society excitement and relevance too. And that can be really dangerous because suddenly your your society, your excitement, and your relevance are all coming from moving money back and forth in and out of stocks,
yeah,
and that can be a very dangerous game too.
yeah. Yeah, and it's not that much different than the people that, go to Vegas, and they just may have a little more research behind them.
Yeah, especially when
Yeah,
especially when you're day trading.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, interesting. So, how do you feel about people who have very strong feelings about what their purpose is and purpose driven um, life is, and choose their investments based on that?
I think that's great. To uh, so Warren Buffett always said, "Invest in what you know," and I think that is a quote that has probably been a little bit overused, but I do think that one of the benefits that's not talked about in investing in a portfolio that you understand or otherwise ethically believe in
Hmm.
is that it is going to give you that emotional resonance. And if a portfolio or an investment doesn't have any emotional resonance to you, that's going to be when it's going to go right on the chopping block potentially when things go bad. But if somebody has that emotional resonance with an environmental portfolio, for instance,
Hmm.
if it goes down, that's okay because they're not in it solely to make money in that particular instance. So um, a lot of folks who it's so counterintuitive, but anecdotally, I've seen so many folks who've been in what they call ESG portfolios that are ethically traded, and those portfolios historically lag,
Yeah.
sometimes by 2 or 3%.
Yep.
But a lot of times, in my experience, those people do better because they're much more easily able to stick with the portfolio and not have the emotional volatility that comes with investing in, say, an AI space company that you have no idea what it does, and it can be so difficult in that situation.
It's interesting because I wrote a book with a co-author in I'm trying to remember what year it was. The book came out during the pandemic, so it must have come out in 2020 or early 2021. I think it was in 2020. But it was about the environmental movement and women's role in it in Australia. And I've always been a big proponent of I'm investing in companies that I believe in the company, that
Yeah.
I believe in its leader, that I believe in its moat, that I believe in all the various aspects of it. And it's something that I'm going to invest in for the long term.
Yeah.
Because I see buying stock as a small investment in the company, right?
Absolutely.
Not just I'm going to play with money and trade and do quick things. Um, and and I had always approached it that way, so that if a company does something that goes against what I consider my values to be, then I'm not going to invest in them, even if I understand their company, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and one of the things that I learned in this book was that there's a form of environmental activism, if you will, that buys into people buy shares in companies that they don't believe in what the company does in order to try to influence how the company behaves
Oh, wow.
so that they can go to the shareholder meetings and stand up and propose things that they can put things on the ballot for the that the shareholders have to vote about.
That's
and
fascinating.
and I it had never occurred to me about the voice that you do have. Yeah, I vote every time I get one of those things that I need to vote on, right? I have
Right.
one today for a company that I have investments in. And, but I never considered like I could actually really have a voice,
Right.
right?
Right.
What's your opinion? Do you have an opinion about that or?
So this is my first time actually
Yeah.
hearing about that strategy, and I think that's a brilliant strategy. Obviously, the more money you have, the more viable that strategy becomes.
Yeah.
A single share gives
Yeah.
you the ability to inspect the books and do all the things that a billion shares can do legally,
Mhm.
but it doesn't give you the leverage, right?
Yeah.
So, having the expectations going into that is definitely important. But I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, certainly we're not at the Warren Buffett level where we can really influence the company,
Right.
but but I was like, oh, okay, that makes total sense to me. And so I I had sold some stock that I didn't think necessarily fit with what I believed in, and then I ended up buying it back. I was like, oh no, wait, I could do this with you know when I vote
Yeah.
and see.
Yeah.
You have done it says you like to read and work out and travel and that you write some fiction. Are you
Yes.
still writing some fiction?
Every now and again, I really love short stories, and to me, short stories are always a way to kind of explore kind of a fun rabbit hole of the way that people kind of act, and it's always a way for me to kind of model in the same way that I would model a financial plan for somebody, right? It's a way for me to model a particular circumstance, right? Like, what happens if person A meets circumstance C, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's a really great creative outlet for me, and I still really do love to do it.
What do you have a particular genre you write in, or are you?
Particularly, I kind of go across. I've written everything from romance to more traditional kind of scary stories,
Mhm.
things like that. So
like Edgar Allan Poe style scary, or like
Yeah,
more?
Edgar Allan Poe. I can remember one story that was very reminiscent of that I wrote. But also, even more modern stuff. Uh,
Oh,
Paul Tremblay and Stephen King and all of that.
yeah. Okay.
So,
So yeah. And do you do this regularly?
well, it depends on if I have the time to do it regularly. And since I found it even, I, I have not had near the time that I've
Yeah.
wanted to have. But I've been able to kind of scratch that itch to an extent through journaling, which is something
Okay.
I'd like to do as well.
Yeah. And journaling, I find um, pe- people who journal generally are in touch with themselves
Yeah,
more. Yeah.
yeah. You have to sit with yourself a little bit more than usual when you're journaling.
Yeah. All of your prices for what you do seem to be on your website. It's
Mhm.
pretty transparent.
Yes,
Is that why you decided to do it that way, or?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really feel like there's a value that I add, and that value has a particular price, and I want people to know that price right up front.
And do
And
you usually meet with clients one time or multiple times? How does that work?
a lot of times, those prices reflect a full annual time that because I'll typically come up with we'll do a financial plan together. We'll talk about the emotions of it. We'll talk about the whole thing. Um, And then there's an implementation period that I always want to take people through as well, because there's going to be a lot of emotions that crop up during that. There's going to be a lot of need to kind of recalibrate. And I always like to be with people through that for that as well. Two things to mention. The prices are never steadfast.
Oh
So
yeah.
my goal is to work with as many people as possible. So there's been times where I've cut the price. There's been times where it even says on the website like my goal is to help as many people as I can. And the second thing is my first appointment is always free.
Oh,
And
that's
so
wonderful.
and a lot of times that's all that people need to kind of get their heads on straight. But at the end of that, if we choose to work together, that's great. We can talk about the price, and if not, that's great too.
So, what do you recommend for people? Because I feel like sometimes financial plans look a lot like uh, company crisis response folders, where it's one and done, and it gets put on a shelf, and people don't really consult it again.
Yeah.
Um, So, what is your advice to people about that?
Um, a lot of times people will get financial planning because they feel they need financial planning. There was a study I read a long time ago. I don't know how relevant it is now, but it said one out of every five people who seek financial advice take financial advice. And
Oh,
I think the other 80% of people, or whatever that number is, they just wanted to get that. They wanted to get the financial advice, right? That's what they really wanted. So, um, at the end of the day, it comes back to what I was saying about emotional resonance. A lot of times those spreadsheet plans sit on the shelf because there's no real emotional viability to them.
mhm.
And so that's why I try to incorporate emotion into just about everything I do. Um, Budgeting is a great example, right? Budgeting will take a look at what they're spending and how much they're making. But then I'm also going to take them through joy, and we're going to assign a joy value on everything that they're spending. And then we're going to figure out what the joy per dollar on everything they're spending is. And by doing that, we can actually see things through many different lenses, as opposed to just typically what you do when you're budgeting is you just get rid of de minimis expenses, right? Like,
Yeah,
oh, geez, coffee, I can make coffee at home, right? But if coffee is what gets you out of bed in the morning, if that Dazbog or that Ziggy's is what's gonna get you out of bed, you're gonna feel it if you cut that out, even if it's only $5 a day.
yeah.
And so I always like to. That's just an example.
And I would even add to that that if you're feeling it, it's also feeling energetic, that it's energetic poverty to you by having to not be allowed to do that.
100%. I think I've never heard that term energetic poverty.
Maybe
But
I just coined it. I don't
yeah,
know.
you must have just coined it because I feel like I'm gonna have to steal it. I mean,
That's fine. It's
but
all yours.
but
Uh,
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
there's so many ways to to experience poverty, and that is one of them. Is when you are constantly expending mental energy on different things that really shouldn't be commanding that much of your attention.
Yeah. Well, and there's this feeling. I mean, being able to say, not that we should have to justify it to ourselves, but to be able to say, I want this $5 cup of coffee in the morning, and giving yourself the freedom to do so,
Right.
right,
Right.
feels very, very different than I need to watch this penny here, or I need to watch that penny there,
Right.
whatever. Um,
I
yeah.
see a lot of people who've gone through very strict budgeting processes. And what they found is that they go out with their friends less. They feel less confident about themselves. They feel, and at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, whether we think this is a morally accurate statement or not, in our society, money is one of the primary ways that we self actualize. It's one of the primary ways that we go out there and get our identity. And I just think that paying attention to that is really important.
If somebody had to or asked you, I'm going to ask you, so I guess
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. So, but do you find that you actually love money?
Uh, um,
I mean, I can tell you where I'm coming from. So I grew up in a very Christian household,
yeah,
and was, the line in the Bible that says the love of money is the root of evil, is it was drilled into me,
yeah,
right? But I realized something, that because that was drilled into me, that had power. And one day, recently, I decided to kind of counteract that, and I kind of stood with my hands on my hips. I was in my bathroom, and I'm just like, I love money, and it felt like "Bleh" inside when I said it, and then I just said it over and over and over again aloud until it had no meaning whatsoever. Right? It was just syllables that was coming out of me, and I literally felt this shift inside myself, that, like, I didn't have that feeling anymore and everything. It was like, oh my gosh, this is like stupid. And I do love money because, for the sole purpose that it, like, allows me to fund the scholarships that I fund every year at my undergraduate alma mater. And it allows me to spend time with my family doing things. And it was like, and it allows you to have a house or a place to live, right? And clothes
it's
on your back. And it was
it's your
just like,
power and influence.
yeah,
And having it, and again, even that component of it, right? Having a lot of it or having a little of it, there's so much potential shame in just the influence that can have, the power, the
yeah.
powerlessness, etc.
Well,
Um,
and it's weird because we give ourselves into that powerlessness and we don't have to.
right, right. A lot of what we're doing when it comes to money is very self-imposed. And I always like to tell a story about a group of South African ranchers who were historically tribal. That's the way that they would
Mhm.
describe it as well.
Yeah.
And when in the 90s, when cattle prices went way up, it brought an amount of wealth to them that they had never had before. So when they were coming to invest this wealth and deal with it for the first time, a lot of folks had a lot of hard time really understanding how much money they were dealing with.
Mhm.
So the advisors would always put things in terms of cattle because they understood that,
Yeah.
right? So they would say, we're going to invest 1/8 of a cattle in this, or this is going to return 1/16 of a cattle to us. The ways that we think about money aren't set in stone. They're not universal, right?
Yeah.
Money's more a cultural thing than anything. And I don't think that it's necessarily worth feeling the shame that comes along with something that isn't even that universal.
Mhm. Wow. So much wisdom in that statement. Yeah. So do you love money or you love
Uh,
finance?
so I do. Oh God, the old Facebook days, right? It's complicated.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah,
it is complicated because on one hand, I see people who have a healthy relationship with money, and it betters their life, and there's just so much less friction. And when money can be like that, I really like it.
yeah.
Um, I'll make this analogy. I feel about money the same way I feel about love. When it's healthy, it's great, and I think that it's the thing that you should gravitate towards, right?
Mhm.
When it's unhealthy, it's the most toxic thing in the world, and you need to stay away from it. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Is I get to see that duality of money,
Yeah.
and it makes me feel dually about it.
So, what's one thing that you wish people understood more about their finances?
um, that whatever it is that they think is going on around them from a financial standpoint, coming from somebody who's looked over thousands upon thousands of personal balance sheets and income statements and everything, um, the whatever the problem that you're experiencing is, it's probably way more common than you think. It's probably way less a reason for shame than you think, and it is probably something that's happening to you, not something that's happening because of you.
Nice. And there's probably a way to overcome it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yes. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
I would say that too. Yes,
Yeah. Well, Josh Dunlop, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. And
so fun.
your website again is evenpathway.com.
Mhm.
And like I said, all the prices are right out on the website if people are curious. And as you said, the first do you do Zoom appointments too? So it's not just in your
Absolutely,
local area. Yeah,
absolutely. You
that,
will never
that's
accidentally
great.
trip into a fee with me, so just feel free to send me an email and let's chat.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for offering that to our
Well, thank
listeners
you.
and to anybody else. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
You too.